And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today we are talking about what happened here in the NBA draft as the Chicago Bulls go ahead and select Noa Essengue at pick number 12. And so I wanted to go ahead, recap that, and then also to talk about just the other things that happened in the NBA draft, along with what we should maybe look out for here in round two, because I think that there's a real chance that the Chicago Bulls could possibly go out and get a center. And so we'll be talking about that here in a moment. But the first thing that we want to kind of go ahead and jump in here to is that the Chicago Bulls take Noa Essengue here at pick number 12. And so, look, I think that this is a solid pick for the Chicago Bulls as far as the play style and the fit there. I think that this is a player that's certainly going to be able to get out into transition and really work well, with Josh Giddey, Kobe White, potentially Lonzo Ball as well. And so I think that he could really fit what the Chicago Bulls are trying to do as far as getting up and down and really controlling the pace of the basketball game. And I also think that he's going to be able to use his athleticism to finish well on those breaks. And so I think that that is point number one. I think that he does really fit what the Chicago Bulls want to do as far as the play style. Number two, I think the next thing that you have to like about this pick is that he's going to bring some size to the Chicago Bulls. And so he's coming in at 6'10". Now, I think that he's probably going to definitely be a small forward initially. Hopefully he gets a bit stronger. Maybe he can get down there and play a little bit of the power forward. But I think for the most part, you're looking at a guy that is going to be a small forward. I think that he certainly is going to have to put on some size. I think that that is probably one thing that you will see across all his NBA draft, prospect profiles and things like that, is that he's got to put on some weight. But aside from that, look, he's got the size, and the Chicago Bulls definitely needed to get some size on the front court. So at 6'10", he definitely checks the box there. Next, for Noa Essengue, I think that the one thing that really pops off the tape for him is when you look at the defensively what he can do. So I think defensively, he could definitely be a talent out there, because I think that, with that size, he could be a player that could potentially really, guard anywhere from, I think a 1 to a 3 type of player right now. I mean, a 4 would be a bit of a stretch as far as just not having the size necessarily to get out there and play that position. But I think it's something that definitely he could guard perhaps in the future. But he definitely gives you a little bit of defensive versatility, and that checks a box here for the Chicago Bulls, because they desperately need to get better on the defensive side of the ball, especially at the perimeter position. And so I think that Noa Essengue would probably be able to provide that. Is he able to do that in year one? That's going to be the question. And then next with him, we start to look at just the things that he can do offensively. And so I think that he is very good, I think, off of the pick and roll. I think that he has a pretty good feel for the game. We just talked about how he can be effective in the transition game. I think probably the question mark for him is, can he be a better shooter? Because if he does turn into a very good catch and shoot type of player there, you're getting more than just a 3-and-D type of player, because he's so versatile and the things that he can do. But that's going to be one of the biggest question marks there, is that he's got to get a lot more consistent as a shooter and really as a shot creator, I think, as well. I think that those are the two things on the offense, and he's also got to get stronger here. But make no mistake about this. This is a big-time upside pick here for the Chicago Bulls. I believe that he was the second youngest player here in the NBA draft behind Cooper Flagg. And so, you're taking a big swing there, but if Noa Essengue can get to the upside, I think that the Chicago Bulls definitely have something there. And I do like the fact that he also fits in well with what's going on with Modest Buzelis. I think that with Modest Buzelis and really, where he's going to fit in with this team this upcoming season, and just talking about really, how we expect for him to evolve as a player, I don't think that Noa Essengue would really get in the way here. And that's assuming that he's going to get some major minutes, because who knows what's going to happen. Because remember, when the Chicago Bulls got Modest Buzelis last year, it did take them some time to go ahead and actually throw him into the starting lineup here. So we'll see what happens with Noa Essengue and what he really turns into here in year one. But I will say this about him. I definitely like the interview afterwards where he said that they asked him, what are you going to bring to Chicago, and he says, I'm going to bring everything. And so I love the fact that he's definitely speaking about just bringing the effort, the energy. I think that that's something that the Chicago Bulls are certainly going to need, and I'm certainly rooting for Noa Essengue to really reach his upside. So with that being said, I wanted to go ahead and jump into what happened in the NBA draft. And first, I will go ahead and shout out my man Kenny here in the chat that says a new center, and he's talking about my man Roscoe. So yeah, we talked about him as well, and we did a little draft profile, so I'm definitely going to talk about him. He should be available in the second round. But before we start to look at just potential centers in the second round, I wanted to go ahead and jump into now what just occurred in the NBA draft here. And so take that off and go ahead and bring this back up. And so, look, I like that the first name mentioned over here in the best available is going to be Maxi Renaud. And so this is a player that we have talked about on the show before. And I think that this is a player that I'd like to see the Chicago Bulls take a look at, especially at the center position out of Stanford. I think he has a very good feel for the game. And to me, he reminds me a little bit of a Brook Lopez type of player. Definitely wouldn't mind him going ahead and getting drafted by the Chicago Bulls. I think that he's a guy that can instantly step in and help this team. Can he be a starter? I don't know, but I definitely think that he's one of the better ready-to-go big man here out of the draft. And so he's still available and a player that I'd like to see the Bulls go with. Then also, too, right under that, you got Rasheer Fleming. And so I think that Rasheer Fleming, again, gives you a little bit of size, but I like defensively what he would bring as far as what he could do perimeter-wise for the Chicago Bulls. And so looking at a player that definitely could translate into a 3-and-D, you get some length and you get some size there. And so suddenly, that the wings, it gets a little bit more interesting because you would have Noa Essengue, you would have a Rasheer Fleming. I like that. And then also, too, if they were to go center with Maxi Renaud, I would like that. But, just not to jump too far off topic, going back to the NBA draft. And so as you can see, Cooper Flagg, we knew was going to go number one, then Dylan Harper, and then it was VJ Escom. And then after that, that is where we see the Hornets go with my man from Duke, and then it was Ace Bailey who falls to Utah. I thought that was interesting considering that he didn't work out for the Philadelphia 76ers in the fall down to the Utah Jazz like that. I wonder how that fit is going to work out. Trey Johnson, then you have Jeremiah Fears. After that, Jaeger Dimum goes over to the Brooklyn Nets. Find that pretty interesting, and just wanting to know how that's really going to work out. The CMB addition to Toronto, I think that that's going to be an interesting fit, especially when you think of what's going on over there with Scotty Barnes. Like, he kind of reminds me of the same type of player. But what I found interesting is that, Cedric Coward goes right before we take Noa Essengue, but just look at all the centers that go after this. The Chicago Bulls pick Noa Essengue. And so hopefully this doesn't bite the Chicago Bulls in the long run here, but Derek Queen, who eventually gets traded on. You got Carter Bryant, who's a player that was mocked to the Chicago Bulls in some mock drafts. And then Thomas Sorber going over to the Thunder. Then you got Hassan here going over to the Memphis Grizzlies. And then also to Johan Behringer, right? He was next to go. And so just a lot of centers that we had talked about ended up going after that. So very interesting to see the movement here and just to see what happens there. And then also, too, I got to note this with the Suns. And so the Suns trade their 29th pick for Mark Williams. And I think that now officially they have Mark Williams. And I want to say that they also have his backup too, Nick Richards, over there to go along with Malawach, who they drafted earlier. So interesting that they ended up with the Hornets centers that they had the last couple seasons. And then now they're going to have Malawach as well. And so, yeah, that was some of the key takeaways here out of this round one. I thought that maybe we would see a little bit more like major trades and more player movement, but we didn't necessarily see that. We didn't see the Chicago Bulls trade back into the first round. Still don't know what they're going to do in the second round as well. And so let's go ahead and let's just jump back into just now, some of the I guess center positions that, or not center positions, but centers that the Chicago Bulls can address here in the second round. And so, another guy that we talked about, he was also mocked to the Chicago Bulls, is a Broom out of Auburn. And so I think he would be an interesting player for the Chicago Bulls to take. I think that, look, when you look at him, this is a guy that he probably fits with what we want to do as far as getting some interior toughness. I think that he could be a player that could probably catch some lobs for you and things like that. But, more importantly, I think he just brings that toughness. And I think that that is something that the Chicago Bulls team really needs as far as an identity. And so maybe he's there at pick number 45. Maybe the Chicago Bulls go there. We just talked about Renaud, who I think would be a terrific fit for the Chicago Bulls. A lot of people here in the comments talking about Rocco. And so I think he's an interesting fit too as well. I've talked about him at pick number 45. I think that, he could be maybe a player with that motor, something that really fits with what the Chicago Bulls want to go with there. And so maybe that works. But those are a couple big men that I think the Chicago Bulls could possibly go with initially. Those are my thoughts here in the second round. I mean, we'll see what happens here. Maybe the Chicago Bulls are going to maybe get some additional second round capital or something like that. Well, let's see if they end up pulling off a move like that here in the second round. But you guys let me know, do you think the Chicago Bulls are done for the most part here in the second round? Do you feel like that they're going to get some additional draft assets? Do you feel like that they're going to go with any of these players that I've listed here in the second round? And do you think that the Chicago Bulls should go center? Because they can definitely do something else, because I've talked about this before. Maybe they go guard. I wouldn't expect them to, but maybe they go with a Sion James. Maybe they go with a Tyrese Proctor. These are both players that I think you could go with, but I would think that the Bulls would be really resetting the deck a little bit if they do go with a guard. So I think the best play for the Chicago Bulls is to address this front line. You try to put yourself into a situation now to where you have some centers. You can go ahead and move forward with going ahead and trading Vooch. Hopefully you can get that done. You can move on from him. You can move on from Alonzo Ball or something like that, and hopefully get some additional assets or a player over that can help you here. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about what the Chicago Bulls did here in the draft as far as picking up Noa Essengue. And then also, too, what do you guys think as far as the fit going along with Modest Bazelis, Kobe White, and Josh Giddey? And then next, let me know what you guys are thinking as far as what AK could possibly do here in the second round. Do you see him going after a center? Would you see him going after a guard? Do you think he's going to be aggressive and get multiple picks? I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. And before we pop out of here, just want to give shout outs to everybody in the comments here. Somebody put Queen is overrated. We don't need a small ball center. Yeah, I mean, you could say that, but I definitely think that this guy, man, I think he plays hard, and I think that he's going to be better than advertised. And so I think he's going to be a solid player. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, maybe I could be wrong there, but I definitely think it's a player that can get it done. Then he comes back here, and Tony feels like that Kobe needs to go. I personally feel like that Kobe should stay, man. But, who knows what AK is going to do. And I would say this about Kobe White. Hopefully he gets a chance to really step up here in this next year in a role where it's like he's not switching roles. And so I think between him and Josh Giddey coming back, and I think the roles are a little bit more defined. They're a little bit more comfortable with the offense. And just depending on what other changes you do with this roster, could be a pretty good fit here. I know it's going to be a big-time decision with Kobe White and the contract, and so I get that. But we'll see what happens. And so next, Vooch needs to go. No excuses. So look, Vooch is a solid player, and he's just older. He just really doesn't fit the roster and the way that the Bulls are shaping out things at this point in time. Do they ship him off? I mean, they definitely should on an expiring contract, but it really depends. I mean, because with AK and the way that, man, he just holds on to assets and things like that, it's going to be interesting what he does. And so let's see. I mean, is it something that maybe he's waiting till after the draft? I mean, I'd still be very much interested if the Chicago Bulls could somehow find a way to get it like a Jonathan Kaminga or get like one of these younger players that have shown some upside, but you get them over and they can help you. And so that's just throwing that example out there because Jonathan Kaminga has been floated. And so next, just kind of going through, we talked about this with Rocco. So I've had him, talked about him. I think he would be solid. Just going through here, see if I see anything else. And so, yeah, no, I don't see anything else. And I take Vooch over Kobe. I mean, that's tough, but I'm look. I still, like I said, I support Kobe, but I definitely respect it, and so we'll see what happens. Like I said, I mean, I think that Kobe is probably their best trade asset at this point in time. Personally, my personal opinion with that between him and Ayo, but they have to make a decision with what they want to do, and so. I think that the Bulls are going to play it out with those guys, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, I appreciate you guys for popping in on this last minute live stream. And so I just wanted to go ahead and stay true to the word, say that, look, I was going to hop on here and do a live. I wanted to wait until after the NBA draft to really reflect on it and kind of throw it out there and kind of set it up here for tomorrow's, portion of the draft, trying to see what this team is going to do in the second round. Personally, I just want to see this team go and just really address that front court and get a little bit more taller there in the front court. Get you a center, man. Get somebody that can give you some kind of physicality up front. But anyhow, you guys let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking. And as we always say, look, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.